What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a season gaming special about Halo and the changes at 343 Industries. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, and I've joined this cast of characters you see in front of you who are all dedicated Halo players with an inordinate amount of time put into Halo Infinite and Halo as a franchise. So I wanted to bring this core group together to talk about where Halo Infinite stands today, what's going on with Bonnie Ross departing and the changes in management and what that means. We'll give you some context, some history on those, the three assignments. And we want to talk about what we think of the roadmap and what's coming down the line and what we'd like to see. So I want to provide some detail here, but first let's go around the horn here and kind of introduce people quickly, even though I know none of you are strangers to this channel. So to my right on the screen anyway, is my favorite Halo streamer, content creator. I mean, he's okay at Halo if you like, bronze, silver level player.
Yeah,
Mr. Batman himself. What's happening, man?
I prefer to be called the best platinum player. You're giving me a little bit low, but plat's more my level. But what's going on, everybody? Thank you guys for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with all you fine gentlemen.
Always, brother. Solid plat 3. That's fair. That's fair. Tis right, the host of You Had Me at Halo, part of the crew over at Xbox Era. You know him well. Mr. OBM, one bad mother in the house. What's up, dude?
I am good. Thanks for having me, Ains. Always got room to talk Halo.
Always, man. That's all we do around these parts. My brother from another. You know him well. The host of the Backlog Chronicles and one of my Halo partners in crime. And my fellow degenerate as well is Mr. Mokawama.
That's number one. Fellow degenerate is number one.
This is true.
Good to be here, baby. Let's get this going. I'm excited. Glad to be here with you boys. People who actually know their shit. And yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
We'll get into it. And last but certainly not least, contributor at Season Gaming and, of course, Mr. Game Positive, my fellow Halo partner in crime as well, Eric Benzanson. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, everybody? Just want to let you know I beat the campaign on Legendary.
Pretty good.
Hey, FYI.
Oh, my God. So, like I said, we're going to talk. Obviously, the big news here is Bonnie Ross departing and kind of what comes from that. I don't want to dive into kind of the community response to that. I've said my piece on that. We want to talk more about what's actually happening, what we can expect. We'll talk about the three people, like I said. But let's start, guys. Before we jump into Bonnie Ross, kind of her impact, where 343 stands, let's just start with the state of Infinite itself as a game. So, like I said, the reason I brought us five together is because we have a ridiculous number of hours in this game. I know I'm over 500. I know Mo and Eric are in the hundreds. I know Abe and Pat are both above me. So we're looking at thousands of hours combined between the five of us. And I know that we've also talked endlessly about where Halo Infinite sits today, what we think of the roadmap, but I want to touch on that specifically. So talking about the winter update, Forge, campaign co-op, the new player progression system, the continued drop pods, which are going to, hopefully improve some of the complaints we have with the technical side of things. And then, getting to their seasonal approach early next year with the 3-month season. So, Pat, I'll just keep going around in this order here. So, Pat, I'm going to start with you, man, because I know competitive, all serious, all jokes about being platinum aside, competitive Halo player, streamer, content creator. You live and breathe Halo. You've had your frustrations with Infinite, as have many others, right? How are you feeling right now about the slate that we have over the next, 7 months, where we're getting the winter update, we're moving into season 3 formally, we're getting the player progression changes, Forge, co-op, etc., and these drop pods along the way. Is that what you want to see? What are you kind of expecting and hoping for beyond that?
Yeah, it's a good start. I would say the winter update, I think you've said this before too, so I'll echo that sentiment that this is probably the most significant update we've gotten to Halo Infinite, even more so than the Season 2 update, which was pretty underwhelming in my opinion at the time. So, it's definitely something I want to see. I like that, another big thing that's coming is the Match XP beta, which is something that's going to really be a game changer. Once this game gets a social rank, I think will make a big difference as well towards just earning things. I'm a sucker for earning things. I love, gone are the days of playing Halo 2 online and just playing to have fun. The landscape of gaming now is to try to incentivize players to come back and keep coming back and earning things. And, just like, Game Positive flex that he's legendary co-op or legendary campaign completer. I like to flex online that I put time into the game, that I grinded for something, and Halo Infinite's kind of really missing that right now. There's nothing besides the battle pass to really show off and be like, hey, look, I put the time into this game and I grinded it. So a social rank, maybe some commendations, rewards, and stuff like that is definitely something that I would personally like to see come to Infinite. But when it comes to, I think I am excited for the winter update, but like you said, the season 3 cadence and getting into that rhythm of getting 3 to 4 month seasons out at a time is kind of where we expected Halo Infinite to be as a live service game. But unfortunately, it's just taking a little bit longer to get the developers to get their feet under them. So it's been a while. It's been a tough battle. I really do look forward to seeing if they can get that cadence starting next year. Will it fix all my problems with the game? I don't know. I have to wait and see. There's a lot of technical issues with the game that I have problems with, like desync, like weapon balancing, things like that have just taken a very long time to get implemented into the game. So the drop pods, without me knowing what the drop pods consist of, I can't really speak on that. But slowly but surely we're getting there. I have no doubt in my mind Infinite can be one of the best Halo titles when everything is said and done, just like MCC has progressed. And I'm sure we'll touch on that later with the new management. But, it's definitely something to look forward to, but time will tell if it does end up bringing players back.
Yeah, fair enough. Abe?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked about, obviously, on You Had Me at Halo. One of the things that I've been focused on for the last couple of months really wasn't even on the content cadence. I know that's the big issue with the community. And I knew that when I saw this roadmap leak, I knew what to expect from the public and what kind of reaction it was going to get. And I do want to see them, improve that to bring people back. But my main complaints to the game have been more the foundational pieces that I feel, beyond the live service, just like what he was just mentioning with the desync, the lack of ranked playlists, the progression system. The progression system is completely counter to Halo for me. Halo's always been about, we're going to give you all this stuff and everybody jumps in there and they pick what they want to play, right? And everybody has different things. I spent 2,000 hours in Halo 5 doing 4v4 ranked just because I like to sweat, I guess. But and I have other friends that just like to jump into the custom games and that's all they did. And, that's, to me, that's what Halo's about. So it really is about the foundational stuff. And the things that I've been really clamoring for is, I said I really wanted to see them take that time and focus on those elements. So we saw some pieces of that, and that was encouraging to me. So I do feel like they are prioritizing correctly, because the content stuff, I'm not really worried about that long term. I've been super high on Forge for a long time, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, so that's really more about the future of it. But the content piece to me is not the long-term concern. I feel like that is going to rectify itself. But they got to figure out how to make Halo work in this ongoing game. And so just the match XP thing. That's a step in the right direction. I think there's probably more they need to do with that, and I'm hoping that we get to hear more, more updates from them regarding some of the technical issues with the game.
Yep.
So that's my big thing. But in terms of things to do, I actually agree. I mean, just with Forge coming out alone, I think that is going to be exponentially more things to do with just that aspect. And I get that there's no web, there's no browser right now, but
browser.
But I do think there's going to be more ways for us to engage with that content, probably beyond that, right? With the sharing and things like that. So, so hopefully they get the custom game stuff, that some of those bugs worked out. But I from a content standpoint, that really hasn't been my concern. I'm hoping that by the time we get to March, and they do get on this seasonal cadence, and they do bring people back, that they have a game that feels clean, that feels fair, that that has all the community supporting features and things that previous Halos have that stuff in there to support the game.
Fair enough. Mo?
I'm sorry, what was your initial question? Just so I don't veer off topic, because I'm listening to everybody, but I forgot the initial question.
Kind of keep it to how you're feeling about the aspects we just touched on, right? The winter update, getting to 3-month seasons, the content slate.
Okay. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, we've talked about this so much. My problem isn't that I don't have a problem with the technical issues as much as like Pat or Abe do. I think I don't know if Pat or Abe agree to this. I'm sure they might. I think it's the best feeling shooter on the market. Me personally,
I agree with that.
Yeah,
when it works.
Of course. I think the mechanics it just feels amazing.
Pat's giving you that.
You've had a problem, Pat, since it first launched. I remember you were talking about
The aim felt
the aim.
weird.
Yes,
Yes.
And I don't know, man. You played so much more than I have, and I remember I'm like, what the fuck? What's this guy talking about, man? It feels so good. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But primarily my issue, besides the things you guys mentioned, is I think it sucks that they blew this opportunity to reel people into a live service game in a year that the game has been out.
Yep.
This was the year that you had Call of Duty down. This was the year that Battlefield 20, whatever the hell it is, became a meme. Okay.
Yeah.
This was the year to capitalize on that. You're not going to take people away from Fortnite, but you could have made the Fortnite players, for instance, or the Apex players curious enough to play your game and to stick with your game if you had enough support and content at least to bring it in.
Yep.
That's my biggest that's what disappoints me the most is there was no plan when this launched. You were launching a live service game to compete with the big boys, and you did not have a plan. Everything that we've seen so far has been reactionary. And to me, that's what's disappointing. It's because how do you launch something into a live service game, especially something of this caliber and a franchise of this caliber, and not have all that there? You wanted to draw the players in, you wanted to bring people in, you wanted to make sure that your lobbies were always full, blah, blah, blah. Always look at games like Fortnite, for instance. Fortnite to me, when it comes in the live service space, whether you play the game or not, it is the standard in terms of how to connect with your players and how to keep your players engaged. Fortnite, the amount of cadence Fortnite has is unmatchable, at least in my opinion.
It took them a while to get there, though.
What is it?
It did.
100%. I agree with you, right? But it's just crazy how they keep their players engaged by just focusing or by just bringing things in every week or every couple of weeks or every month. The cadence is there to just keep you. Look at the other day when they just had Dragon Ball, right? They had Goku and Vegeta and whatever. People went nuts. Shit, I went nuts, and I don't even play Fortnite, and I still bought the skins. But that's my biggest problem. That's my biggest problem with it. That's where my main disappointment lies. And I know that's going to get better, but still, even with these events or whatever, for some reason, I still feel like they're missing that it factor that just keeps you hooked. Guys like us who are hooked to the gameplay and are hooked to the gameplay, are hooked to the franchise, are hooked to it's Halo. We love it, but in order to appeal to a mass audience, like much bigger audience than what you were initially than what you wanted, you need something. You need some sort of carrot on a stick. And I feel like they still don't have that yet to keep people coming back in. And that obviously has to do with the content. That's why, for instance, I mentioned like Fortnite, right? Fortnite always has a carrot, right? The good thing of what they do is you play the game, you earn stuff, you get happy, but then you get happier that there's more stuff to earn, right? Yeah. So your time in the game, you feel like it's always constantly rewarded. Every time, whether it's a battle pass or whatever it is. And they're going to get there, and they're getting better with it, but I think that still is missing. Like Ains, what excites us the most? Every Tuesday, we hit the store to see what's new, and we spend money, right? Yeah, but see, that's more money that we're obviously willingly spending. But I just wish that was actually there was something part of the game, that would, like there was a carrot like that.
We all get what you're saying.
Get that excitement. Yeah.
We've already covered that you and I are degenerates, though, so that's neither here nor there.
Oh man, I want to chase so many squirrels with that one, but I think we can come back around to that. Some of the
I think that's pretty much where I'm at least for now.
So fair enough. Eric, go ahead and comment, and then obviously I'll kind of fill in at the end after you guys kind of give your thoughts.
Sure. Yeah. First, I just want to say I think it's interesting that like all of us have kind of like different things that we're pointing towards, which is probably not great for 343 because they need to cast like a super wide net to kind of fix all this stuff. But for me, I think my biggest issue with Halo Infinite right now is sort of in line with what Patman was saying with regards to the progression and stuff like that. For me, I want to have like something to chase. I want to have like not necessarily challenges like they're implemented today, but like long-term goal challenges, like VidMaster style challenges. I know like Mo said that like Fortnite is like the gold standard in terms of like content delivery and cadence. I think Apex Legends is the standard in terms of giving you that carrot to chase and giving you like constantly rewarding you for playing in really interesting ways with really interesting rewards. So like in Apex, if you go and you have a beast game and you get like 4,500 damage, you get this really awesome icon that you can put on your profile, something that you're going to see every time you load into a lobby, something that everyone else will see anytime you're on the champion squad. Like these things you can display like in Halo 3 when you can get recon armor and stuff like that. Like even though it's a first-person shooter and you're not going to see anything and you're not paying for it necessarily, you're going to try to do the hard thing to get that. And whether that's getting like super like longevity-based rewards, like getting a bajillion kills, or whether it's doing something extremely difficult like lasso or something like that, getting that thing that's kind of cool to show off is something that will keep me going. Or even something as small as just constantly growing a social rank, like Patman was talking about. Like those things are missing, and there's just all these like little like nicks and cuts that they do with how they're currently implementing their progression system that just really irks me. Like a lot of it's based around the challenges because they fundamentally will change how you play the game. Like they will literally make you play the game in ways that you don't want to play because it's the only way that you can progress. And I want to progress, and Patman wants to progress, and everybody wants to progress because that's like the way games work today. You need to have that extra thing. You can't just sign in and play games and have fun anymore like you could do in Halo 2. You need to have that reason to play. Otherwise, you're going to go play something else because there's so many other options. And for me, if I want to go in and play like Slayer with my friends, but I have challenges for like Oddball or something, like that really sucks, or Big Team or whatever. Like it's just like it kind of like I think Halo Infinite's amazing. I think they did so many things right, but like these little things, I can't understand how these mistakes were made and how they're still active. Because you would think like they would be somewhat easier to fix than some of the other bigger problems. Like desync is probably a complex issue, but like not giving or giving challenges that are like making you play the game in ways that you don't want to is like seems like something that should have been fixed within the year that the game's been out. So those little things are what bugs me. I think the biggest problem for like the wider audience, at least the narrative that you would see if you're like kind of not invested in the game every day, is the lack of content, which I do agree with. I think there should be more content. I really went into this this showcase that they did, the 30-minute spiel, expecting to see more content, and they did talk about that, and that is coming. So I have no real concerns about that like in the future. And one thing that I do want to point out, last thing, is like even though they have kind of missed the ball in terms of the quantity of content, I think the content that they did deliver is pretty good. The maps that they've delivered are really fun. I really enjoyed Last Spartan Standing. Right now, like if you log into Halo and play the Yappening, like that is so fun. Like the stuff that they're doing is really, really good on top of the base game, which in of itself is really, really good. So I have no issues with like the competency of 343. I just think there's like this big mess that they're still cleaning up from whatever happened in 2020 when Staten came. And I think that we're still feeling the repercussions of that. And hopefully in March, when season 3 drops and we get that seasonality that they referenced, that will be like the kind of, I don't know, the path forward or the path upwards, I guess. So,
You
Fair
hit
enough.
one thing. He hit such a good point with the progression too. You know, I mean, obviously that's one thing we've all talked about for so many times. There's nothing more disappointing than if you have such a freaking amazing game, you get like 20 to 25 kills in a game or whatever it is, and you don't get shit. You just
Right.
get 50 points and you move on.
Yep.
That's the carrot I'm talking about.
And God forbid you have the battle pass completed for the last 3 months, then you literally get nothing. So,
Yeah.
So it's funny, like I know, and you know, Pampa, who everyone here knows, we play Halo all the time together, and one of the things we joke about is like, you guys nailed it, right? Like Halo 2, Halo 3, like those games you just played for fun. You weren't getting constant rewards. I know we talk about the samurai armor from Halo 3 and stuff, but you're talking about one thing. You know what I mean? Like there was no constant drip back then, but there were no options. You either played that or you played Call of Duty, and that was it.
Right.
Well, as of Halo 3. So now the expectation, as Eric nailed and you all touched on, right? The expectation and the standard, I would even say, across these bigger games is that there is a constant drip feed and reward and that dopamine hit that you get in completing a game. Now, I'm an old head in that I don't personally need that. Pat and I were joking in DMs last week about this, like that, you know, he don't let me put words in your mouth, Pat, but you know, you love that, right? Like in Call of Duty, you got those constant skins and Apex you talked about and other games. Fortnite
Destiny does it really good as well.
Destiny as well. It always makes you feel like you're getting something, even though you don't know what the hell it is or what it does. But
you got something.
That's true. That's true. And Halo, even if the old heads like me who just want to play for the mechanics of Halo, it goes without saying that you have to have this other stuff, right? And I think I think you need to have both the kind of cosmetic, rewarding, battle pass style, unlockable type stuff combined with the progression rewards, medals, commendations, you know, profile wide stuff like Eric was saying too. I think you got to get all that. And they're so far away from that right now, it's kind of scary. Like there's none of that. There's nothing. So, and with the pace at which they've delivered these smaller updates and we get the career progression beta, whatever that means, in November, right? I guess we'll see in 2 months. I really hope that it's not just an XP thing. Like I hope they have some other foundational blocks ready to go to say, here's what we're building towards. So we'll see. But I generally agree with you guys on all that stuff. I think we all do. And I think that I'm hopeful that the technical issues that we see sometimes in Infinite can be maddening. And I, you know, we know they're working on them. They've given a lot of detail about what is causing certain things and desync and these other things. But we need these drop pods to really deliver over the next few months. So, but in terms of content, I agree with a few of you who said, like, I wasn't as disappointed with this roadmap 30-minute presentation a few weeks ago as others were. And I know Mo and I joked in DM, like, as soon as they gave the picture where it said season 3 is March, I was like, oh, this is a shit show. like you're in trouble. Yep. This is going to be bad.
Because there's no context.
I was like, started drinking before you checked Twitter, right? At that point, I knew. I saw the leak a couple of days. I'm like, oh my god! I was like,
well, the problem with it was because there was no context to it, right? Like I was at work and Ains was working at home, but he was able to watch the show. And I told him, I'm like, hey, I was like, just drop info as you're watching it, please, so I know. And then with I put what he told me with the picture of the roadmap, and I'm like, oh. Okay, because remember initially I looked at it, I'm like, it's okay, you know. I mean, for if this is all the way until June, it's like whatever. But then like once you filled in those gaps, I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. They just their messaging is always not always.
Yeah, expect people to watch a 30-minute video. That's the problem.
You know what they should have? They should have done the Forge, the showcases they're doing now. They should have done that before they did the roadmap, because I think right now people grossly underestimate the impact that could have on the game in the next over the winter. Just for social content.
So let me ask this of you guys, because I've been kind of debating with this internally. I think we all think about Halo too damn much, to be honest with you. But you know, we see a lot of people. The one thing I want to hear you guys also, and we may debate on this a little bit. The one thing I hear a lot of people say, especially in the Xbox community, is this game should have been delayed. And what I've been pointing out is take your personal feelings out of it for a second, right? They launched a game that had a critically acclaimed, again, whether you like it or not, regardless, it's critically acclaimed campaign and multiplayer suite. It's got an 87 on meta, and it broke 20 million players in like a month, right? And now it's free to play on multiplayer, so we get all that, right? But still, so fundamentally for me, the problem is the live service aspect, which we just kind of touched on, right? They launched, to Mo's point, they launched without that plan to really drive off a launch. Like they took off and then fucking crashed rather than flying, right? It wasn't it. I don't think delaying the game, whether 6 months or even to this year, changes that, because in my opinion, campaign co-op, we know the shitstorm that caused on Twitter and social media and stuff. It's not a game changer. It's just not. It's not a game changer for the community. Forge, I think, will be a game changer. Abe and I have talked a lot about this, and Eric too. Like long term, especially, this is a game creation suite. Like this is not the Forge that we grew up with. This is a whole new thing.
Tool.
Yeah, it's a development tool. Exactly.
Yeah, it is.
And it's going to be effing incredible once people start really building things in this, because I think people can't see the scope, right? They can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
But I think in November, I don't think Forge solves their issues either. I just don't. It doesn't have a browser. It's not going to have matchmaking.
Yeah.
Your casual person who doesn't know Halo like we know it, the person Mo referenced who plays Fortnite or plays Apex or Siege or whatever big shooter they play. Never mind Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 coming this fall, right? The people who play those games aren't going to log into Halo and say, let me go into custom games, download some maps and play those. That's not going to be the difference maker. So I keep seeing people say like, well, they should have delayed it till campaign co-op and Forge was ready. Then it would be complete. And I'm like, first of all, the reason it's named Infinite is it's never going to be complete. It's a live service title. So complete is this arbitrary word that we throw around with Halo Infinite, which I think is disingenuous. And campaign and Forge co-op, even if you launch with those, you're not going to change the live service failures that you would have had. So that's just my opinion. I don't know where you guys stand on that.
I like to play devil's advocate, so I like to do both sides. So
the red background too.
I know damn we got banished Batman in the house.
Yes, I'm a Sith. I'm Sith Batman right now. So, I agree that maybe a delay probably wouldn't have changed anything, but I also see from the other side of saying that okay, well, if you do delay and you do have Forge at launch, those however millions of players that you have, maybe they stay instead of leaving for other things because they get to experience all those things at launch. They get a complete package at launch that we're used to have. Like 5 didn't launch with Forge. Okay, we get it. Forge is so much bigger than it's ever been. Like I get why it's delayed. I'm making an excuse for them. It's such a big tool that
it's a fact.
Different studio, did a lot of the legwork for Forge. Yes, 343 has something to do with it, but was it Skylab Studio, something like that? They helped make Forge. So, it's definitely something bigger there. But if we did get that complete package at launch, do they retain more players? Maybe. I also think that a beta, maybe.
Yeah.
Like
maybe a small percentage, maybe.
But you're not going to retain millions and millions of people, but it makes a difference to a lot of people. Like what people hear Halo, Halo used to be the complete package. Nothing could compete with it. Halo 3, Halo Reach, even 4, the campaign, the Forge, the custom games, the multiplayer, the commendations, everything. It had everything at launch, and nothing could compete with that. Theater's a huge thing too. Theater's insanely broken and Infinite. Yeah. In my opinion, what should have happened, not a delay, but November when this game launched and it was a beta, and then 1 month later it got the full release and nothing really changed. Just leave the beta tag on it, like Fortnite did for like years. Cover your ass a little bit, like this is a work in progress. This is not a full release. This is a beta still, and you guys have a free to play game. You're not paying anything to play it, but you're helping us shape the future of Halo. Obviously the really angry neckbeards are going to be like, don't care about a beta tag. They'll be like, give us the Halo we want.
We want it all. We want it now.
Exactly. That's just the community. But like Bad Mother was saying, even like me and you, our argument that we had in DMs that we were joking about, like Halo is different for everybody.
Yes.
And just because you don't, like customization, like grinding for stuff, and I do, doesn't mean that I'm in the right, you're in the wrong, or vice versa. The Halo's supposed to have that wide net. You're supposed to have those playlist options. You're supposed to have the options of how you want to play the game.
Agree.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's fallen short so far, and it boggles my mind that a 2022 launch game, we don't have that.
Yeah,
like
That's
just
fair.
some of the features that it's missing. But
Yep.
yeah, I guess I could agree with you, but like I said, I like to see the other side of the story, and maybe things would be different. Who knows?
Nothing is black and white, man.
Exactly.
I mean, we're all talking speculation.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pull a little bit further. So, because
I got the mute button ready, Abe.
Because Ains, and just for for
Hey, Abe,
a little
Abe,
bit, yeah,
Abe.
yes.
The tone's really high. Maybe.
Oh, is it?
Let me see.
Gain.
Yeah, sorry. It's just let me see if I can
Okay.
turn your mic. All right, go for it.
Okay. All right. Am I good now? Testing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, on our show, most people agree with you. I think 4 out of the 5 of us probably agree with your stance, and I was there at one point as well. So here's where I differ, and I do think that when it comes to live service, and especially I think 343 and Halo is in a very unique position. I understand it. Sometimes it sounds like it's not fair. There's no other game that has expectations that you got to deliver a solid campaign, a solid multiplayer. And now this Forge thing, and what really kind of made me switch sides on this was that, when I just think about this alternative reality, this alternative reality timeline where Forge is launching in November of this year. Obviously, we didn't know Starfield was going to be delayed, but it would have had a pretty big stage by itself.
Mhm.
But it would have given the developers time. They wouldn't have been. First of all, you don't lose a lot of contractors whenever your project's officially up. A lot of those contractors went and moved on, and I think some of them were even vocal on Twitter about it. I won't mention names, but they said, "Hey, I wanted to stay and work on it, but I got a better deal over here, a longer, more secure deal, right?" So you lose a lot of talent. That could have helped you work through a lot of these technical issues. You could have, like was just mentioned, we could have seen a beta, something that was thrown out there to let people kind of find the bugs, and they could have gone back and forth with that. Even previous Halos, Halo 5 and Halo 3 had betas well before launch, right? So you could have done things like that just to try to, identify where there's issues. And it could have allowed them to build up a little bit of a pipeline. And I think
the only thing I'll say, sorry, Abe, is Infinite had a beta too last summer.
Mhm.
I mean, they had the same timeline that other Halos.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. But, and I do think this is bigger, right? There's a little bit more going on here. And I just look at it like it would have given them more time to really clean it up, work on the foundation. Yeah, they probably, it would have taken them maybe another year to find out that the progression system was total shit, right? I'm not allowed to swear. But,
you can swear.
that it has, that the progression system is just anti-Halo, and maybe it would have taken a while to figure that out. So we would have had to wait another year on that. But I look at everything else. Most of it, I think, favors Halo coming out in November. And then the thing that puts me over the top is this Forge. The more I'm kind of like seeing the future of Halo, and I think we'll talk about this more later, is I find this Forge that is going to be a bigger part of its identity than I think anybody's really expecting. Like, it's always been campaign multiplayer, and then there's this like little extra thing here for fun for Forge. I think I think Forge is going to be as big as anything. It's going to be one of the 3 pillars of this game. Yeah. And I think you launched this game without its 3rd pillar. And I do believe that even if you would have launched without a web browser, it would have bought you time. Just the optics of people going on Twitter and sharing the Toy Story, levels, sharing these just different cool looking levels. And we saw the virality of Halo back over the last winter when it first launched. People were sharing a lot of clips and stuff. And if you could have leveraged that energy and you could have pushed that into the Forge, and like you could have created a snowball. And that's and I still think I won't go off on tangents. I won't talk about future, but yeah, I do think that, I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of potential. And even though this is a live service game and it's never dead as long as the company doesn't give up on it. It's going to be around,
Right.
and Halo's going to be around. I don't know that you get you. I think sometimes you got to capture that zeitgeist, right? Like, and I just think that there was a huge opportunity coming out with this sandbox, the way that it landed. That now we got to really they got to chip away at this for a long time, and I think they would have been much further ahead with the community and probably the game if they would have just delayed it 1 year.
Yeah. So here's my take on that. I don't think a delay would have done anything, and the reason why is because they had no plan to begin with, like I was telling you. Every fix that they've done, every correction, everything that they've done since the game has launched has been reactionary. Every fix that the game has had has been reactionary. So if you don't have that feedback, because clearly their feedback during development, did they have it? I mean, of course they had playtesters and whatever, but if you don't have that feedback from people, how are you going to improve the things that you don't know need to be improved?
I think that
Obviously,
goes back to Pat's idea of beta. Just say this is a work in
he
progress.
nailed it. That's what they should have done. And then a lot of the noise would have been not all of it, but a lot of it. Everybody would have been like, okay, it's still in beta. It's still in beta. You know,
They would have been like 2 years and they still can't deliver the effing
Yeah.
game. You know, but you know,
I
It's a
mean,
beta.
yeah.
Waited 6 years already.
I mean, let's be honest. They'll never get. If they change the time to kill by like one bullet in one gun that somebody hardly picks up, there's
Yeah.
going to be people rant videos, right?
yeah.
Here's the thing. Even if the game would have launched with Forge, right? I don't think it still would have corrected the live service issues that we have been talking about for the past 45 minutes.
Yeah, to the broader community. That's my point.
100%. You know, I mean, yeah, that's cool. The suite would have been there, and obviously you would have needed people to be involved, and people will be involved. I mean, the Forge isn't even out yet, and look how many creations we've seen already. But it still would not have fixed everything that we're talking about. So even with a delay, we don't know. Obviously, again, it's like you said, speculation, but we don't know what they would have done in this year. What would they have fixed? You know, I mean, imagine they said like, we got to delay it again another year, right? When they delayed it from launching with the Series X, okay, to 1 year later, the expectations were already sky high. For me, when it comes to campaign, because I'm a lore whore, right? When it comes to campaign and story, it met it. I loved it. I loved the campaign. But obviously, we're not talking about campaign. We're talking about multiplayer here. So imagine 1 year later, you have to tell people we're delaying another year. So if the expectations were that high, yeah, you would have been the butt end of the joke for about a week or so, but then people would have forgot about it. You know, but then if you're delaying it another year, that brings your expectations even higher. So that means if you're delaying a game 2 years after it was supposed to come out, 2 years, and it still has these kinds of problems, you think it's bad now? Imagine what would have happened. You know, I mean, I'm telling you. So launching it when they did, it seems like they wanted to make sure their skeleton, their foundation was there, and then build on top of it. Obviously, they knew when the game came out, they're like, okay, we don't really have much to add right now, but at least it's fun to play. And the maps are cool, and the game is gorgeous, and it feels great. You know, and everything that they've done, man, all the fixes that they've done, and everything has just been reactionary. And I feel like if they didn't have that real world feedback from people, I just feel like I don't know if we would have actually been in a better place in a year. I'm not. I used to think so. For a very short period, I used to think, man, they should have just delayed it. But after seeing everything that's happened over the past year, you know, I mean, I'm not so convinced anymore that it would have really helped. You know,
what about the game? What about the game engine though? Like,
think about it this way, right? Like, I mean, if it would have, even now, 1 year, Pat, I'm sorry to cut you off. Even now,
I cut you off.
1 year into the launch, Forge is still not done. Right? We're getting it, but Forge is still not done. So in this year, and co-op.
I feel like some of my opinions have informed a little bit about like kind of hearing about some of the behind the scenes of the game engine, because the game engine was still, like we said, it's still immature, and it was even more immature late in development. Like they were still, you know, like in 2020, we're not able to do really basic things because they were rewriting code, and so I that's the other aspect of it. I just think of it as you know, you just you just get the tools ready, right? Just getting just that one, like take everything else out of the equation. Just spending having all that time to really work on that stuff just would have allowed them to hit the ground. I think be able to be a little bit more agile. So I think they could have even responded faster. But I mean, you're not totally wrong. I'm just more right.
But see, the other issue is, see, the other thing is Halo 5 launched in 2015, right?
Yes.
So Infinite was supposed to launch in 2020.
Yes.
Right.
So we had a 6-year development cycle.
Mhm.
So you're telling me in 6 years they still had, so you built slip space using God money, that you were given. So you built the entire engine. Who built it? Was it 343 that built the engine?
They had a
Okay.
yeah, it was. They had, and the key engine architect is no longer with 343.
But see, that's the thing that's the thing that trips me out, man. The studio itself built a proprietary engine for their own game, right? We're not talking about BioWare and Frostbite having trouble with Frostbite, right? Like BioWare, what did they used to use Unreal and it worked out perfect for them. And then EA comes in and they're just like, hey, you're going to need to use Frostbite for whatever, for Anthem, right? And obviously we know the issues that they had. This is an engine made by the studio itself. So it's just weird to me how they still had problems with an engine that they created. It's not like it was built from an outside source.
They
You know what I mean? So again, I don't know. I don't know. I'm obviously just reacting to what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they underestimated the scope of what that meant.
100%. Oh yeah.
It miscalculated. It just went slower, and then COVID hit at the wrong time. I think even Jez has talked about that. I think COVID hit him at a really critical time, and that
It was
really,
like a snowball
especially
effect.
Yeah, it's a domino effect.
It was like a perfect storm. There's a lot of contractors. They're on these, you got the 18-month thing with Microsoft. You screw up that timing, now you got this domino. It's like problems just kind of built on each other, and that's that goes back to why I was right. But that's it.
Yeah.
Eric, you want to add anything on this topic before we get to Bonnie Ross and her departure and what that means?
Yeah, well, a lot of my thoughts were kind of echoed a little bit. In terms of it being delayed, absolutely do not think it should have been delayed. I think Microsoft needed this game to come out and be good, and it did come out and be good. I think if we reel the conversation back in a little bit, what we're looking at is like an 87 meta, a game that was widely loved by everybody at launch. If Halo Infinite launched a few weeks earlier, it would have made the Game of the Year cutoff for the Game Awards, and it would have been nominated for Game of the Year and had a legitimate shot at winning Game of the Year over It Takes Two, in my opinion, and probably your guys' opinion as well. And that would have been the first time an Xbox game has ever been nominated for a Game of the Year. Since 2014, when that show started, there has never been a game published by Microsoft that has even been nominated for Game of the Year. And that would have been the first one. And after having almost a decade of the whole Xbox One console era of being laughed at for their output, they needed this win, and it was a win. What we're talking about here is the live service stuff. Like to Mo's point, I think he nailed it. We don't know what that year would have meant in terms of that. In terms of co-op, I don't think that moves the needle, like Ains said. They could have easily went in the wrong direction in that year. It spent time developing the wrong stuff and made more bad decisions or just bad decisions in general. Like, we don't know. And optically, it would have looked awful if it was planned to come out in 2022 and then it got delayed by 2 years. That and going into a brand new console with the Series X, like I think the wider scale of that it doesn't really. I don't think that would have been the right thing. Like, sure, if it had co-op at launch and if it had Forge at launch, it would be like objectively better. And if the matchmaking or the match-based XP stuff was there, it would have been objectively better. If they delayed Halo 2 and added a complete campaign and had the maps that came in the DLC packs, it would have been a better game too, right?
I get yelled at for such comments. Careful.
But that's true. I think Halo 2 is like literally probably my favorite game of all time. But the campaign ended abruptly. It didn't have content that they showed at E3, and it didn't have all some of the best maps to come to Halo 2 came post-launch. They could have delayed it for a year and it could have had that stuff and it would have been even better. But like, I don't think they should have, because Halo 2 is amazing. I don't think Halo Infinite is as good as Halo 2. I think it definitely has problems, but Microsoft desperately needed that game to come out and be an 87 meta and be well liked by everybody and be a potential Game of the Year nomination. It lost that by like a couple of weeks because of how the cutoff works. But Yeah, I don't think it should have been delayed. In terms of the engine stuff, it is a custom engine. It is a young engine. They have to refine the engine, and the best way to refine an engine is to get millions of people providing feedback to it. It's something, especially when you have a finite amount of employees, and they are kind of like dwindling when the contracts run up, which is a problem in and of itself. That's a Microsoft problem. That's not something that 343 necessarily can control on their own. Like they have these decisions happen like above bosses. They have rules to follow in budgets and stuff like that. And that's a discussion. That's a totally different discussion. But
where we're going.
We're gonna get good transition.
Okay. We'll just transition there. TLDR though should not have been delayed. Absolutely not.
And you got to remember too, man. Can you imagine how pissed off Spencer was when he knew that the game had to be delayed 1 year after the release of the Series X? Like, this game was supposed to be rolled out on a red carpet with your shiny new box. You know, I mean, it was the stars were just supposed to align for it.
He said it on stage at E3. It will launch with Halo Infinite.
He did. He did. So imagine the bullet he had to freaking bite. You know, I mean, the shit he had to bite back just to delay it 1 year, and then to tell him another year.
I would have been like Estrom in that conference room, just like throwing people against walls.
Can I just say one more quick, super controversial thing too?
You're taking the heat off me, so
okay, I'll take the heat. I'm the smallest person here. Anyway, the people out there that are not necessarily Abe, I'm not lumping Abe into this, but the people out there, the people,
nothing you're gonna say is gonna be much harsher than my ex. Keep going.
Okay, cool. Okay, so including Abe, the people out there that say, "Oh, the game should have been delayed and blah blah blah, should have launched with the live service stuff and co-op and whatnot." Those people are not like they were not the people that were like driving to 10 different gas stations to find different colored Rockstar Energy cans, or like trying to find custom like Slurpee cups in Halo. Like, we waited so long for this game. Mo said it took 6 years to make this game. That's double the amount of time it took any other Halo game ever to be made. There's Halo games that came out in 2 years, and we waited 6 years for this. So like, I would never want to that experience that I had playing the campaign and the launch experience playing multiplayer, because multiplayer was amazing until 3 months after it came out, when we're like, where's the next season? I don't want to trade that for anything. I don't want to not have that experience in 2021. I don't want to wait an extra year to have all that fun and be in that kind of zeitgeist and go to all the gas stations, have my cups up there and have my steelbook and my art book and my EGM cover. I don't want to wait for that stuff. And I don't think any of you guys want to wait for that either, right?
No, we definitely.
I got all 5 of them right here.
I would have done.
Exactly.
Yeah, I preached for a staggered launch for the longest. I wanted multiplayer to launch first to give campaign extra time because of how much campaign content got cut. Mo, I know you said you're a lore nerd. I love the lore too, and the Zeta Halo story kind of disappointed me. I love the gameplay of the campaign. Probably my favorite gameplay ever in a Halo. It's just so fun going around the world. But the story itself, I didn't feel like it progressed anywhere. I just left with more questions at the end. I'm like, I need more. Like,
it was Force Awakens.
It's just getting started. Like, I'm okay. Give me more, please. There's so much to Zeta Halo that they didn't explore, and I was like, I really hope there's DLC.
There will be. You know, I mean, there definitely will be. I mean, we played the other games too. I mean, look, none of the questions. The question, I'm gonna make this really fast. I'm sorry, since you bring up campaign.
We even talked about this before.
I know, man.
You can just cut this out. I don't care. Just edit it out.
No. The only thing is, no Halo game has ever answered all of the questions that people had. Right? There was a lot of things that were unanswered. There was a lot of mysterious stuff that were just like, huh, where, what? You had to go digging. You had to go look into it, and I feel like this also did the same thing. Granted, though, it did a good job of introducing people who've never played Halo, you know what I mean, to the story, but it also gave you a lot of cool tidbits for the fans like us, the veterans who know the story and who know the characters and who know everything. So I'll talk about this with you later, but I got a bone to pick with you about this story, baby.
Well, sadly, let's not forget, and this is a whole nother Cameron of Worms, we're not getting into it, but they had to, what they felt, course correct from Halo 5 story. which is a whole nother ball.
That
wax
train
that
wreck.
that we've all talked about a million times. So
Yeah.
anyway,
that was a
so
Where's
Yeah.
Travis? Let him defend Halo 5's campaign. Go
Oh
ahead.
no.
yeah, he is a defender of Halo 5's campaign.
He is.
He is,
Got good graphics.
All right. So let's
Good graphics.
somebody's got to take
and
that
gameplay and levels, like it did a lot right. It just anyway.
Great podcast.
So moving on to kind of the core conversation, believe it or not, 53 minutes in, is around Bonnie Ross departing. So Bonnie Ross comes out this week, and no kind of I don't think any of us expected this clean cut. You know what I mean? It was just like, hey, I'm leaving. So here's her official statement, just in case you haven't heard the official thing. She said, while I'd hoped to stay with Halo until we release the winter update, I am letting you know I'll be leaving 343 and attending to a family medical issue. I'm incredibly proud of the work everyone at 343 has done with Halo Infinite, the Master Chief Collection, and Halo television series, and so much more. It's been an honor to serve alongside the team for the last 15 years and to be part of a universe that I love. Thank you to everyone in the Halo community for your support. Halo's future is bright. I cannot wait for all of you to experience what we have in store and to cheer alongside you as a fan at the Halo World Championship in October. Axios. By the way, the Halo Championship that Mo and I will be at live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So there's a couple things I want to touch on with this. So let's start with, before we get to her replacements and who they are and what where they come from and all that, let's talk about Bonnie Ross leaving to begin with. So Bonnie Ross, one of the things you guys saw me take kind of get on the shield about on Twitter is it's okay to criticize Halo. We're doing it right now, right? It's okay to criticize 343, delivery, all these things. Bonnie Ross is a goddamn legend in this gaming industry. Like, her resume of accomplishments over 30 years is broader than nearly anyone else you can point to.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a legend. So show her some damn respect, first of all. And we can recognize, yes, she's studio head and the buck does stop with her. We all get that. We're not naive to leadership, right? But as we've alluded to already, and I'm sure we're going to talk about more, there are a lot of factors that play into the complications and the problems with Halo Infinite as we see them. What struck me, and I'm got to remember, I'm in leadership in corporate. I have a 24-year career myself. I see things like this a lot, so I tend to read into them, and maybe I'm reading into it more than I should. But to me, when it says that I had hoped to stay with you until we release the winter update, which is November, as we know, what that signals to me is that this move out of Bonnie Ross had already been in the works for months. That this was planned, right? And this had been coming for some time. So I think it's fair to say that Xbox and Microsoft leadership, whether it's Matt Booty or, there's a lot of other leaders besides Phil Spencer, believe it or not,
Right.
that these discussions around the community response to live service failures of Halo Infinite, the problems, whatever it may be, they were already had, and that a shakeup with leadership was already coming. I think that's clear as can be. Now, the thing that I find also interesting here with Bonnie Ross is, let's also remember a few things about Bonnie Ross. Is that, one, she was a big proponent, and not a lot of people, I know we do, but not a lot of people kind of talk about HCS as much in this wider gaming community, right? It's much more the competitive focus scene, but she was a big proponent of that. And HCS is as big as it is, even with the faults right now that Halo Infinite, because of her. Going even further back, or to the launch of Halo Infinite, she's the one who brought Joseph Staten back to 343. Joseph Staten is beloved. We all love the guy. He knows Halo as well as anyone in the damn world. He's there because of Bonnie, and which signals to me, again, she knew there were issues going on with the kind of finishing of this game, and we need help, right? Thirdly, 343 Industry, she helped found. When Bungie's decided they want to go independent, Microsoft was trying to figure out what to do with Halo. Does it have this long-term future? She's one of the proponents because of her resume at Microsoft and Xbox and what she had accomplished with Gears and with Psychonauts and Mass Effect on Xbox 360 and a bunch of other franchises. She had the influence to say, let's bring this in-house. Let's found an internal Halo studio. And they partially did that. So we all, as Halo fans, no matter what you think about Infinite or even 343 over the past decade plus, we all owe her a debt, because we may not even be having this discussion if it's not for Bonnie Ross.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to get that off my chest because it infuriated me to see these morons online posting, you know, like celebrating Bonnie getting let go or her, you know, peacefully kind of pushed out, whatever, however you want to phrase that. We don't know the details, but you need to celebrate Bonnie, excuse me, and what she did, regardless of the issues with Halo Infinite. There, I've said my piece. I'm telling you guys not to go on too long. I'll stop now. So anyone want to add anything about Bonnie Ross in particular?
Sure. I agree with you. I thought when I first read that statement, I didn't know if, like you said, if it was like, all right, this was in the works, or if she was saying that she was hoping the family situation would, not get worse, so that she could, and then step down. Whatever it may be, there was a shakeup that needed to be had, in my opinion, of the mismanagement lately. I think a lot of the problems with Infinite, the TV show,
that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Right. Yeah. There's been problems. MCC's launch almost single-handedly killed the franchise. So, there's been plenty of negative, but like you said, she is a legend in like gaming. Like, honestly, to have the cojones that she did to found a studio, to go to Microsoft and do that. Microsoft entrusted her with their flagship IP. And yeah, maybe somebody else would have been head, who knows, but without her, we wouldn't have had anything. Like, my life would be so different if I didn't get another Halo after Reach, because the first thing 343 did, they adjusted Bloom. Thank you Bloom. Like, I was not a fan of Reach's multiplayer that much, and there's never been a perfect Halo title.
What?
Ever.
Bungie's perfect. What are you talking about?
No.
Armor lock.
Hell out of here. Should I say it at least once this podcast so we could rustle some feathers? Halo 3 is overrated. Okay.
Yes,
it is.
Great game. Great game.
Dual wielding was the worst thing ever added to Halo.
Yeah. So without her, I would have never met you fine gentlemen. I would have never met. I've met people in real life that I forged relationships with in Halo 5. I've gone with my friend Rapscallion. I met through Halo 5. My buddy Kevin Kulex, I met through the Halo scene. Like, afterwards, I would have never had these relationships. I would have never been a Halo content creator. So without her, taking over my favorite franchise, life would be a lot different for me. So I'm forever grateful for that. But a shakeup needed to happen. I think
we'll talk. We'll talk about that.
Absolutely. So that's all I'll say on that matter.
Yeah, I definitely got some things to add on that, and really, I won't repeat what you guys have said. Obviously, I think we're all educated on that, and I think that's one of the things to kind of point out too. I think, as somebody who's a sports fan, Mo, you can relate to this. Growing up here in Detroit, winning one playoff game for the Lions in our lifetime. It doesn't matter. As soon as that new GM and coach come in, as soon as you see them do something screwy, you go, there they are. That's, and you call for the jobs of the GMs and the coaches, and pretty quickly, and a lot of times there's a lot more that goes into it, right? Than just that. And I think that I even talked to our panel. You had me at Halo panel, and we're all pretty much in agreement with what you said there. But I think a lot of the general community doesn't understand that. They do look at Bonnie. They do look at her as like the general manager of the sports team that's failing, and so we need to change it. And so I do understand the reaction, but I do think it's just not informed, right? And I don't think people understand, like what you just explained, and really kind of, she was told when she was going in there, she talked about this in an interview that, like she was told, hey, don't take that, because not only do you got to deal with the legacy of Bungie, but you're going to have to deal with Microsoft. You're going to have to deal with, like, you're going to have to be under their, there's going to be some tug and pull from them, and you're going to be underneath that. There's going to be a lot of things you're going to have to take on. And, for her to kind of go head first into that to kind of save the franchise, and not only save the franchise, but we'll kind of talk about this as we talk about some of the new people, but what's happened with Halo over the last 10 years and this studio, it has, the scope of what they are responsible for has grown considerably, with the TV shows, with all the media stuff they got going on, with the toys they got. She didn't just save Halo the game. It was like, I'm not only going to save Halo the game, and she mentioned it back then. She wanted it to become like Star Wars and have all this other stuff. And that's what her role wasn't just the game. And really like it was for her, it was to hire the people and trust them to do the right things with the game, and some of that stuff did backfire. But you know, like there's that aspect of it, and then there's also when we talk about where the buck stops. I think people look at it like it stops with her. It really didn't. It really didn't for a lot of those years. A lot of those years it stopped with Terry Myerson. She wanted to delay the release of Halo 4 to launch with Xbox One, and they wouldn't do it. And she even in her interview with McCaffrey a few years ago said she still thinks that was like she still would have done that like if she had her way. And that created the snowball. Like 343 wanted to do a remake of Halo 2. And then, you know, Microsoft said, hey, we don't have Halo at launch. We need something bigger. So they went bigger and they didn't have the resources. So they outsourced it. And that outsourcing created some tech that created all the issues we got with MCC. And then you take it further. She wanted to, you know, they wanted to work on the game engine before Halo 5 release. And some of the things they've done between 5 and Infinite were things that they initially roadmap before that. Again, they were not able to do that because because Xbox One was in trouble and Halo needed to launch in 2015. Josh Holmes talked about this when he left the studio, he did an interview. He said, you know, we spent a year and a half really trying to figure out the direction of this game. We did that. And then we had a year and a half. They didn't give us any more time. We had to cut it back considerably. And he pointed to things like there's a lot of things in that game that a lot of grandiose vision that never came to light because they weren't given that time. Because again, Halo is a business. It was the thing kind of, you know, pulling Microsoft's first party along. So, you know, there's all that stuff, and then that just compounds, and you go through the contractor stuff. I guess I say all that. It's not just to go around and point fingers, but really when you kind of look at that, the issues, the challenges with Halo don't stop with her. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. And Jez has said this on his podcast last week, and I don't know what the alternative timeline is, but you know, he mentioned that maybe if somebody who's a lesser person in that role, it could have been a lot worse, handling all the
100%.
You know, handling all the different things that you had to handle with Microsoft, with Terry Myerson, who's not giving you the head count. You got to go outsource, bring in people for a proprietary engine who aren't going to stay there forever. So they're going to continue to duct tape and, you know, bubble gum and shoestring this thing together, and you create those issues. And I've talked to, you know, somebody who's, you know, worked there before and about some of the things that go into that, even things like netcode, some of the ways they handled that, you know, cost-effective solution that was
of course
built in a lot of problems that they're still working through. So there's a lot of things right now, and this, you know, ties back a little bit to like try to unwind some of that stuff, and they've been rebuilding that engine. It's still not, I think, fully mature. At least it wasn't towards the end of development. And at the end of the day, I do see a studio that, you know, under her over time, if you were going to point to some other positives besides the fact that she rescued the franchise, they did listen to the feedback. I mean, Halo 4 came out, that multiplayer did not resonate with the community. They went back to the even starts. They fixed that. Now they dropped the ball on the campaign, rushing it. Infinite comes out, and I think it finally recaptured that identity, both with the campaign and multiplayer. All the complaints we had about Halo under 343 prior to Infinite were based off of game design decisions or the identity in terms of the look and the feel and all those things. I think they were finally able to pull off something that was damn near impossible, and trying to kind of find that thread, that needle between a half of a toxic base that wants it to go completely in another, you know, modernize it, go in a different direction, and another part of the base that only wants to play Halo 3 for the rest of their life. And so they did that. They did that under her. And I do think now the challenges right now are more on the technical side, because they decided to finally do the thing they wanted to do for years. And so, you know, I know it sounds like I'm making excuses, but I think you need to kind of recognize that
everything you said is true, though.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk to developers that have been there. They'll tell you about anybody who thinks you're going to give Halo to another studio. Yeah, good freaking luck. First of all, yeah, I can see how. Yeah, like the drinking games that be playing over there. Like, oh, we're going to inherit this base, this engine. It's like, good luck, guys. You know, like it took years for them to kind of start working through that. So, you know, I do think just
I'm gonna give you the music, Abe.
Okay.
You're getting it.
Okay. All right. Last thing. It did grow a lot. It did grow a lot over these few years, and I think because of the growth, because of the expansion of the studio and the scope of everything, they did need to restructure whether they kept her or not. So that's kind of my final thing.
Yeah. No, I think everything you said is true, and I don't think Infinite gets enough credit, or it does. I think from us, but I think widely because they're not as hardcore as we are about exactly what you said. It somehow managed to walk the line between classic Halo and modern Halo, and it does it extremely well. And it brought the art style back, and it brought the designs back, and it brought Chief back, and it brought all these things to the future while still feeling familiar, like we've loved since CE. And how you do that as a development studio, I have no idea. I wouldn't want to be in charge of doing that. So anyway, go ahead, Mo.
Yeah,
So Bonnie Ross.
Yeah, I know. No, I was looking at this paper. I'm writing shit on.
Sorry, I don't follow directions really well.
No, you don't want to be too harsh, you know. I mean, I understand that, you know, there's some things that are out of her control, but then I look and see, why are they splitting up her position into 3 positions now?
Right.
You know, I mean, so it's. I think she shoulders a lot of the blame, despite all the accomplishments that she's had. Look, she had a lot of accomplishments at Microsoft for everything that she's done, right? But maybe she just wasn't the right fit for 343 from the beginning. You know, I mean, with all the things, you know, with all the problems that we talked about, whether it's Halo 4's multiplayer or Halo 5's shit story, you know, or Infinite's stuff that we've all discussed. At times, it seems like at times she was able to get things working, but even Master Chief Collection, I didn't even mention that. So there's a lot of big wrongs that have happened. These 4 examples that I mentioned, despite all the good things that have happened, slip-ups like that get magnified. Okay, I mean, they get really magnified, especially for a franchise like this and with its pedigree and it's fun and how it's a foundation for Xbox, blah, 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 right? All that poetic stuff. All these things get magnified, and when they get magnified and it happens not once, not twice, 3 times, 4 times, somebody's going to have to bite the bullet. You know, I mean, somebody's going to have to shoulder the blame. And you know, I mean, and then I looked at it, I'm like, maybe, I mean, it seems like this was something that was that like Ains said when he led this off. I think it was something that was going to happen. I personally think that, you know, we're not owed any proof. We're not owed any explanations besides anything that they gave her. But I think they gave her the respect to go out on her own. Is the medical stuff true or not? I don't know. You know, I mean, but still, that's on her terms, right? Instead of them making it a public, like, hey, we're going to go our own separate ways with Bonnie Ross after 30 years. I don't think they wanted to do that, right? I mean, so they let her go off on her own term, which is understandable, and that's how it should be, especially for somebody who served your company for so long. But I mean, still, that's the thing that I keep thinking about is why did they split up her position into 3?
Yeah.
Why did they put 3 people into 1 position now? That means somewhere along the way, they realized that one person has not been doing a good job of managing all of these things together. So now you got 3 brains put together to do the job of a person that was previously only doing it by herself. So, I mean, yeah, accomplishments are great. You know, I wish her the best and everything, but I think we all saw this coming, man. It had to happen. Something had to happen at some point. It reached a tipping point. You know, I mean, and we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens.
Yep. And I just add maybe the straw that broke the camel's back for the community. I know the outcry was split screen co-op. Literally coming on stage a few years ago and saying, hey, every Halo title from here on out will have split screen co-op, and literally the next game doesn't have it anymore. Definitely. Probably just something you never should have said in the first place.
Never say that.
Yeah. You know, gamers have the memory of elephants. You know, besides the internet, obviously, which gives us access to everything that we want. People don't forget.
Right.
especially when it comes to their beloved IPs.
You
They don't
never
forget.
promise anything in perpetuity. Never.
Never.
I think
CD
Chris Lee.
Projekt Red.
I think Chris Lee kind of promised or made a lot of things seem possible that weren't really possible. But
Well, it goes back to the whole thing. There's and that still lies on her. She's the one who chose to
You're
say
right.
it.
That's true.
But
True.
you
Yeah,
know,
agreed.
yeah. So there's a lot we don't know that went on, but there's a lot of
Absolutely.
pieces. But I agree with you, Mo. No matter what, at the end of the day, in situations like this, there will be a tipping point in leadership where leadership change is needed, not only internally but externally, right? Because we're talking about optics at this point too, and whether all these other facets that we're talking about. The matter of fact is that the conversation has changed to say whether it's right, wrong, indifferent doesn't matter. The optics are now that 343 and Xbox are making a change for the future of Halo, and that inherently brings about positivity, even for people who aren't generally positive. It's just that's the nature of business. That's not unique to Halo or Xbox or anything else. I mean, that's just a brand thing.
To back you up, that like us Lions fans, right, Mo? Hey, we got a new GM, new coach. Hey, there's maybe we'll
Super Bowl next year.
We'll finally get it, man.
Oh man, look, and again,
please don't compare Halo to the Lions. Please don't.
Please don't. No, if she would have stayed, look, the longer she stayed, the more restless people were going to grow, because that's just an indication of Microsoft doesn't care. Keep things the same. Keep things as is. Microsoft doesn't care. You know what I mean? So that's a positive. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it. It's not to shit on her legacy or what she's done, but still, there's a trail. There's a trail, and it needs to be dusted off. I mean, that needs to be dusted off, and something new needs to happen. And clearly they saw it, and they're willing to make changes. So if you're willing to make changes, take that as a positive. They clearly recognize that there's something wrong. So,
and there's one broader aspect I want to talk about. I'm going to save that for the tail end of this conversation that kind of ties into this, but I want to let Eric speak on this. Eric, you've been very patient tonight, sir. It's probably because you're a Jets fan and you've been waiting forever. But
you poor
man. When did the Lions win?
I'm not a Lions fan. I don't know. Never, I think. is the answer. I was going to say, Pat, growing up as a Niners fan, now in Kansas City, and you as a diehard Bills fan, no matter those three teams, we're not Jets or Lions fans. You know what I mean? We're doing
that is true. It could be worse.
The Jets have more Super Bowls than the Bills.
What did they win any in your lifetime?
I've actually been a lifelong Cowboys fan.
We're talking about total.
Oh
Super
my
Bowls.
God, you jumped the bandwagon. Oh my
30
God.
years.
I shouldn't have done this. I took us off course.
Anyways, I'm not going to be super. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because we do need to move on. But I do want to give Bonnie Ross her flowers. Like Ains said, is a legend. I think it's insanely crazy that she was able to break into the game industry in general in the 90s, because that is was very difficult for female designers and developers and female people in the tech industry to break in. The only people that really were able to do that they had to be legendary, like the Amy Hennings of the world, the Jade Raymonds of the world, Roberta Williamses of the world. It was very tough to do that. And then to have this long successful career that she has had is, again, legendary. There is a video game Hall of Fame. She will be in it. I also think that it's I don't think any of you are doing this, but I think it's very irresponsible to blame the failures of any team on one individual person. Even though the buck does technically stop with them, the reality is she has to trust the people around her to do their job and trust their judgment. If she has a creative director that they picked out on a Halo game, she has to trust them. She can't keep micromanaging them, because that will make things even worse. We will never be able to know what the games would be like or what any of these things would ship like if she didn't do what she did. I would tend to believe that they would be worse. I think the only the reason why her departing is a positive is because it's not because she's leaving. It's because her role and her huge amount of responsibilities is being divided into three different people, because even somebody as legendary as Bonnie Ross couldn't do that job with all the responsibility that was on her, because she has way more on her than the typical studio head does. We don't have to go over the laundry list, but Ains already brought it up, Halo, the TV show, the shared world, universes, the transmedia, the games, the esports stuff. That's not a typical thing for a studio head to deal with. Like when Herman Hulst was at Guerrilla, he wasn't doing that. He was laser focused on the game. And if he had a designer that made a bad decision, he would probably have trusted them, and then that would have won the game, right? Like she has to trust these people. And if you look at the track record of the Halo games, pretty much every Halo that 343's done has had a different director or a different narrative designer or a different creative director, which isn't super abnormal in the game industries, but it shows that she is looking at the end product after trusting them and making adjustments. And you can talk about mistakes that she's made, like claiming that there will be co-op forever or not beta testing the net infrastructure of MCC. But again, like she has to trust her lead tech engineers or lead network engineers to they probably had these conversations and they said it would be okay. And what did she do afterwards is she rectified it. Not only did she fix Master Chief Collection, but she gave ODST away for free to everyone affected. She gave more remastered multiplayer maps than they needed to, and they turned Master Chief Collection into the greatest collection of video games that's ever been assembled ever in history. There's no collection that touches that right now in the state that it is. It's amazing. So is she perfect? No, nobody is. Is she responsible for all the bad things? No. Is she responsible for all the good things? No. I'm sure she'll be the first person to tell you that, but like this conversation started with, she is a legend in the industry. She's had an extremely successful and like amazing career, and I wish her all the best. And hopefully her family's okay, whatever it was. And like Ains said, it's very obvious that this had been planned. Whether it was planned because Microsoft wanted to split this workload in 3 different ways, or she wanted to leave, or she's retiring, or I'm not sure. If they weren't satisfied with her work, the quality of her work, then she wouldn't like leave she would be not at Microsoft anymore, or she would be repositioned somewhere else. Bad. I think she's literally just retiring because she's been doing this for a long time, and honestly, she's probably like super rich. So like, why not? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So agree with all that. So with that, you guys already touched on it, right? So there's, from what we've heard, and I know Abe, you talk about this too, because the rumblings inside, like Joe Staten comes in, right, lands the ship, as they say, right, to get Infinite launched. But from what we've heard rumblings about it internally, and I know on Defining Duke last week, I talked with Chris, who said he's heard the same, and I've talked to other people who have said they've heard the same, which is like they're doing a little bit of cleaning house, right? Like they're getting rid of, there's people over here, like you're not doing your job properly, like things have to change, right? So that's not just at this executive level, that's across 343. And that signifies everything that we want it to, right? Which is like, to do that in an organization, you obviously have to have approvals and funding, which goes all the way back to Microsoft, like Abe was alluding to. And you don't get those unless there is an investment from the company into that IP in this studio, right? So the good news, I think, for all of us is that this change from Bonnie Ross is not the only thing happening at 343, but it also signifies a broader focus on the improvements that need to happen within 343 for the future. So with that, the new leadership team is who we're going to talk about here today, though. Or, leadership team is broad at 343 and Xbox. But the main guy we're going to talk about real quick is Pierre Hintz. He is the one who's actually replacing Bonnie and is the new head of 343 directly. So a little bit about him. He came into Halo and 343 in 2018. So he hasn't been with 343 or Halo ultra long, but he has been in the gaming industry for over 22 years. He actually started with Sega and the Genesis or Mega Drive, where he focused on bringing content from Japan. He has worked on a wide range of things. There's actually, you can find on our site, go to seasongaming.com. You can find on our site, there's a link to the profile of, what he's done at 343, like a employee spotlight. So there's a lot of history here I won't go through, but he basically has helped with MCC and helped guide the leadership of MCC over the past few years. And as you guys have already said, MCC is in a fantastic place right now. Again, that took a while though. He talks about API and platform choices going back to the whole engine and tool sets that we've talked on. But he's also a big fan. He's mentioned about expanding Halo into other genres, which I found interesting, including strategy. And he mentioned a space combat game as well. His favorite game of all time, according to this, is Civilization 4. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know. He likes, he says right here, And I've talked a lot about how cool a Halo space combat game, tactical or strategic, could be. It's the perfect setting for something like that. Maybe one day we'll get a chance to make something like that. So I think that's kind of getting us on another tangent, which we'll have another roundtable one day. But I also want to read, before you guys comment, Tashi, who, if you're not familiar with Tashi, listening to this, you probably should be. He is kind of leads up the HCS stuff for, and I just had it here. What am I doing? He kind of leads up the HCS stuff for 343, organizes all the tournaments and things like that. And someone asked him the other day, they asked him, how has anyone seen Tashi's thoughts on this around Bonnie leaving, etc.? And here's what he said. And this is a little long, but I want to read it because it gives you a lot of context for this conversation about Pierre. Bonnie was always a big supporter of esports. She really believed in the connection and the energy that it brings to players and fans, and how it unites the Halo community around an amazing spectacle for the game. HES is not a thing if Bonnie didn't believe in it for all those years, and she granted us the resources and empowered us to go make HCS for Infinite the program that it is today. She'll be dearly missed at the studio. Then he goes on to say, thankfully, the rest of 343 management, including Pierre and Elizabeth, who we're going to talk about as well, are also big supporters of esports. So I wouldn't worry about where HCS is going to go. He said, in my time working with Pierre in the last few years, I've been really blown away by his ambition and his vision, two things I preach in leadership all the time, how he builds and empowers teams and people around him, and how he always strives to do right by players. So I found that really interesting. So he also mentions, he goes on to mention that Elizabeth, who we're going to touch on, like I said, is actually Tashi's manager today and will continue to be going forward for HCS. So let's start with Pierre, though. This is a guy who, by all accounts, seemingly gets things done. He seems to be very passionate. He has a career where he's really escalated through it. Someone who obviously executive leadership sees as very capable. And has seemingly done a very good job to go from joining Halo in 2018 and being the studio head in 2022. You don't see that in the gaming industry. You just don't. Mm-mm. So he's doing something right. He has a lot of trust placed on him. Obviously, we'll see what happens, right? The clock starts fresh right now, and we see how 343 deals with Infinite going forward. But he seems, by all accounts, from what I've researched over the past few days, he seems like a guy who people seem to love and who, like I said, gets shit done. So touch on that as you will.
When I was reading his biography or his background in the industry, I was worried at first.
Okay.
I was a lot of sports mentions, he came from like FIFA, racing games, things like that. I was like, all right, this is interesting. But then when I got to the MCC stuff and the drastic turnaround that MCC had over the last few years, MCC was already the most ambitious thing that we've ever seen from a collection. I've always wanted like a Zelda collection, something similar to MCC for Zelda. I would
don't get Mo started, please.
For that. Yeah, all right, sorry, but like just the love that's gone into MCC, like I never would have predicted half the stuff that's come to that game. It's insane. So that really, really gives me a lot of hope for the future of Infinite, because that is, MCC was basically a live service. I mean, it was a retail release game, but it was updated over time and has become just a huge thing now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does over the next few years with Infinite. And that placed a lot of faith in him. And like we mentioned earlier, now being split into three separate, Bonnie's position being split into three separate things, he's going to be laser focused on getting the ship strained out, I think, and doing his part. So I'm very excited to see what happens, and we'll find out if it was, for the best.
Yeah. Babe?
Yeah, I'm going to try to give you back some time on this one.
Yeah, there's really only so much we can add about Pierre, right? Like, we don't know, right. But
we don't know. Yeah,
there's two things that really do stand out to me, though. One is the fact that it is the three positions, and like I mentioned earlier, I just think that 343 grew a lot, and this is really the scope of everything had widened, and so this really just, I think, demonstrates. A lot of this is I think whenever you put people in leadership, I think it does signify what your vision is, what you you know, like what you're admitting to in terms of challenges and you know, opportunities. And I look at somebody like this who came into MCC. He took on something that was on fire, and they said he was somebody walked into this with vigor, and that's good because he's going to walk into the fire, and I'm sure his you know, this whole stage of of everybody being positive will last a week.
That's true. That's true.
And, you know, this is probably one of the toughest jobs in all of gaming right now. And so to see somebody that has a thick skin that can get in front of that and take that as a big part of it. But the other thing is I look at MCC and it's kind of its path and what somebody in that position may have learned or what they had to do to win back fans and what you might bring into this role. And with MCC, they did a lot of things that were just fan service, right? Things that didn't make them a lot of money. They would just continue to churn out things to try to get goodwill back, really focused on they were able to over time connect with the community despite having one of the worst launches of all time. So when you kind of look at that, MCC. I don't think this game Infinite's really burning as badly as MCC was, but it was a microcosm, right, of some of the challenges he's going to face here. And I hope that this is a person because of the experience we'll be able to relay that stuff to Phil, to upper management that, hey, yeah, I understand that Battle Pass is everything is what everybody else is doing. But, you know, for Halo, what's good for Halo, that may not be the best thing for our fans. Right. So somebody who can come in there and talk to them that way. So that's really it on him. I am optimistic overall, though, about this change.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll keep it short. It's not, you know, like I said earlier, you know, I think if they're able to keep this whole 3-person, you know, thing and allow him to do what he needs to do, and obviously with his work on MCC and everything else, I think you know, clearly they think he's the right person for the job, especially now after, you know, all the stuff that has happened over the past decade or so, you know, I mean, or at least like the slip ups that we've discussed. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a good move. And yeah, man, we just want to see results. Let's go.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I'll keep it short as well. In terms of his like resume and the stuff that he's worked on in the past, I don't really put a ton of stock into that. Like that doesn't really make a difference to me. Like Marty O'Donnell's was known for Flintstone vitamin commercials, and then he made some of the best music the world has ever seen. So like what he's done in the past in terms of what games there were doesn't make a difference to me. The big thing for me is that specifically that they chose him, kind of like what Mo said. Like even if they wanted to keep it the position like higher in-house, with all the acquisitions that Microsoft has had recently, they have so many talented people, and for him to be the one that they chose means that that they know that he can do it, or at least they believe that he can do it strongly, which that gives me confidence. And I won't lie, like what he did to turn around MCC is pretty impressive considering where it was. I do disagree a little bit that it's like one of the well, I guess it is technically one of the hardest jobs, I will say, because it's a franchise with a huge fan base, but it's definitely a very sought after position, even though it's in kind of trouble right now. A lot of people in any creative industry love to work on IPs that they're passionate about, and there's a lot of people that are in games that are passionate about Halo across all games. You can go to Disney Dreamlight Valley, and I bet you there's people on that dev team that love Halo. So like, it's a very sought after position. There's probably a lot of candidates that were very qualified for it, and they chose him. So that means something for sure.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on the other two as well. So Brian Koski, I think, is the least new, if you will, to the role. So he's the new general manager of the franchise, is what they're calling it. He's been head of marketing since 2015. He also helped to market Forza in some degrees. And he's been a senior product manager in the industry since the late 90s. So he's been in the industry a very long time. But I think the shift in his role from where it was to where it is now is just, it is least different of these three. And then you have Elizabeth Van Wyck, who is the new overseer of business and operations. And I was reading her employee spotlight as well. So she's been with in the industry for 17 years, all with Microsoft and Xbox. She's helped build up the team at 343 of analysts, business managers, operational experts, and more. And she has also helped grow esports for 343, particularly Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. And regardless of the state of the game, one thing we haven't touched on, and we probably won't go too deep into this, but I know Mo watches a lot. I think we all watch a lot, really. But is that Halo Infinite esports, in terms of like viewership and stuff, is actually in a pretty damn good place. And we've got 2 huge tournaments coming up here shortly. But according to what it says here, she's done a really good job with that. And Tashi's comments kind of echo that as well. The thing I read from earlier, just to expand upon that. He said that Elizabeth, head of esports for a time, she was there at the beginning of HCS supporting it as business manager, took it over and spearheaded it. And that awesome 2018 season with MLG. She's still my manager today and very involved in HCS simply because she loves it. It's key. She's the best boss I've ever had, and it's not even close. So, again, a lot of promising things being said here. We can't talk too much about it, right? Because we're not in the weeds and we don't know exactly what's happening. But the signals that we're getting on these people are very positive.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought something that was interesting too with Brian Koski. He's GM of franchise, which sounds a lot very similar to what Frank O'Connor. He is the franchise development director. So I wonder if he's next to step down. A lot of people have been calling for. He's been around for, obviously since the Bungie days, one of the most recognizable people from the Bungie days. So I'm wondering if something's going to happen with that position shakeup. But I do like seeing, I think the whole business side is just so much to undertake. So Elizabeth, focusing on that and have, like, once again, we're going back to the 3 separate people doing what one person was doing. Just the business side alone, allowing these other 2 people to focus on their jobs, I think is going to be huge. And definitely what Tashi said is when he says best boss he's ever had, and it's not even close. That's pretty cool to see. So that's definitely big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the Frank O'Connor thing. If you're not familiar, he's been in some hot water, has made some very negative and questionable and commentary on forums that has been pulled out. So I'm sure there are conversations going on about that. But we'll see what happens. All right, guys. So let's kind of wrap this final topic. The one thing I wanted to circle back to is that I've forgotten. So we're going to move on to the other topic, which hopefully this will come back to me. But
that's why I said show notes. Bo.
I have them. I'm looking at them. I just didn't write it down.
It didn't help.
So what I would say is let's talk about how we see Halo Infinite getting back on track. And we touched on the roadmap at the beginning, right? But what do you personally want to see? And here's where we can also bring up the whole Tatanka thing, if you'd like, and certain affinity join the development and what that means and what you'd like to see from that. But the one question I wanted to pose to you guys while you talk through this, I'm reminding you guys about the time if possible, is I mentioned this on Defining Duke and I posed it back to those guys. And Chris disagreed with me a little bit, fair enough. But I said that one of the things I often talk about is that when Halo 2 and 3 were at their peak, right, there were very few options on the market. It was, especially with Halo 2. I mean, Halo 2 was a phenomenon, right? I mean, it was all there was. Halo 3 is when Call of Duty started to build up. You had Modern Warfare come out that time, and it kind of took over. And I mentioned on that podcast, and some people tried to challenge me, but I showed them the data, is that after 2007, 2008 on, Call of Duty had more players than Halo. It just did. Total players, period.
Which is
it's a fact. And part of what I think, personally, attributes games to Call of Duty being, Call of Duty is on a whole nother level, right? But Apex is another good example because it's very similar in some aspects, calm down, shooting mechanics, in that it's more of a point and shoot game, whereas Halo has very unique mechanics, kind of like, I always joke about Gears. But what I challenge back to you guys as you think through where you want to see Halo, I see Eric laughing, where you want to see Halo Infinite go is, I personally don't think, if they keep Halo at its core, which we all love here, right, and the way it feels to play Halo, and the way you can do the Halo dance and you can outplay 2 and 3 and 4 people at a time because of those mechanics. I don't think that the larger gaming community in 2022 or 2023 or what have you, I don't think Halo will ever be number one again. Ever. I don't think it matters what 343 does. I don't think it will ever take over the Fortnites of the world, the Call of Duties of the world, to a lesser degree, I guess, Apex of the world. I just don't see it happening because it's not as easy to pick up and play as those games. It's just not. And some people like us have either grown up with it or they've come into it and kind of adapted to that or love it for its own reasons. But I think generally speaking, in a mass market setting, I don't think Halo is ever going to reach those heights again. And I don't think that's the fault of 343. I don't think if you put Bungie in charge, that magically changes. It's an absurd thought process. So I'd like you to comment on that as you think about what for you, other than what we've already touched on, right? What do you really want to see 343 drive towards, and comment on the arena MP aspect versus the battle royale aspect that is succeeding for games like Fortnite, Apex, the obvious players, right?
All right. No, I don't think it's even fair to compare Halo to Call of Duties or Fortnite because they're on almost every single platform.
There's that too.
Yeah. Halo Infinite definitely has something going for it, being on another platform with PC. Once they get that situated, and the biggest thing for me that gives me hope for Infinite is if something like the Tatanka does come out and just kills it. Halo Infinite's free. There's no cost to go back in and just give it another try. That is a nice thing that it has going for it.
True.
And yeah, Forge is going to be huge. We've talked about that. We beat that nail or beat that dead horse, whatever. But I don't think that's going to bring as many people back as we would hope to really see a boost to Halo Infinite. Something like a BR would bring in a lot of people who don't normally play Halo into Halo Infinite. And if it's its own standalone, me and you have talked about BR so many times. Apex was the game that made me want a Halo BR.
Yeah.
Because to me, actually, a lot of Apex's situations and engagements remind me of Halo. You can outplay people by positioning, which is a key thing in Halo, and working together with your teammates. Halo's very team and tactical in a way. So it definitely gives me hope. I've always said Halo Sandbox would have the perfect setting for a BR if they could tie it in like Warzone has done, be a own standalone thing, but also tie into Infinite and its progression.
Yes,
shared battle pass maybe, or something, just something to tie it in, get rewards and Tatanka that transfer over to Infinite, whatever it may be. That could be huge for the series. But yeah, I agree. Halo's never going to be on top again, but it could still be a force.
Yes,
it could still definitely the arena shooter, man, it's just not as popular anymore. Look at the recent news about Splitgate, that they're stopping development on Splitgate, which was the most recent craze for arena shooters, which really never ended up being that big of a thing on the radar. So it's tough to break into that thing now, but we're lucky that Halo's such an established franchise, and there's so much, just like we were talking about with Pierre, there's so much possibilities besides just FPS with Halo, whether it be MMOs, RPG, like Halo, you could just Halo
the
Wars
universe is there.
You could throw the Halo cosmetic aesthetic on anything, and it's got the potential to blow up. So it's like Star Wars. You could literally do whatever you want with the franchise. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I just remembered a thing that I forgot, so I've got it now. I'll come back to it first. Abe, go for it.
All right. Well, you might want to write that shit down because
All right, Abe. All right.
It's my turn. Oh man. All right. So God, this is one of those things. Honestly, Ains, I could probably do an hour and just get on and talk about it. I'm going to try to make it short. I'm trying to think of how to summarize this.
Well, and this is not our final show. This group always comes back together.
Yep. Yeah. So there's going to be the thing with Halo, and it almost goes back to some of my frustrations with what they've done with the live service, because this game is still unique. There's still not a game out there that has a campaign, a competitive, and I know Baron said this is a competitive game and got some hot water. It absolutely has a competitive identity. It's had it since Halo CE. It also has a casual identity. It's the thing you get together with all your buddies and do fun, stupid shit with, and now we're bringing in this thing that's like a Roblox / Minecrafty type of element to the game, and I can't tell you exactly what that one thing that's going to get the most people in here, but I think that Halo is something that has the potential to be more than just one thing. It's going to be the sum of its parts, or more than the sum of its parts. The fact that anybody can kind of come to this game and find the thing that they want to do, whether I want to go build. My son, he plays Fortnite, but he doesn't do the shooter. He plays the builder. He does it, and he does stuff on his iPad. And we're going into this age where Halo's going to be on people's iPads, and and the kids can do the building stuff. We know, like on PC, some of the biggest games of all time were mods, right? They were mods they were not the intended game. And I'm just like this. And so what I'm hoping, if we're talking about what's going to save Halo, I think Halo's going to continue to exist because nothing else does replicate that feel. When I get fed up of Halo with the desync and everything, and I'm like, I'm done. I was like, well, what the hell else am I going to play? I go bring back. So, it's never going to die to a certain base. But if it really does want to be one of those games that gets in the top 5, it does need a visionary at some point. I think with the live service, beyond the battle pass or just a regular progression system, something that's thinking outside the box that leverages Halo the way that Halo innovated the industry once before. I think it needs to do it again. And it's probably something that none of us here are going to come up with tonight. But there is all these disparate parts to it. And I look at what Roblox does in the business, the monetization systems they have in there, and what the hell, Roblox? I mean, you look at that stuff and it's like, it doesn't look good. It can't play better than Halo, right? And it's like, what the hell is going on there? And that's in the top 5 again, or it was on the Xbox. It's like, what the hell? So, Minecraft's up there.
It's also worth $40 billion.
Right. Yeah. $40 billion. And so, like, I do think, like, BR is part of that, right? Like, we talk about, like, Halo Sandbox is really it is really dynamic and I think agile enough that you can adjust it to almost anything. You could make a hero shooter out of it. You could do PvE stuff, and there's a lot of potential. I do like what they said about spinning off more things. I think there's probably a lot of opportunity to continue to have more teams working on this engine, so you can kind of shift around some of the employees over time instead of relying on contractors. But there's a lot of opportunity there. So I would say that the thing that is going to bring it up into something that can compete with the big boys is it's going to be somebody who can think outside the box, figure out how to build a progression system, that carrot on the stick that can tie into any mode. You have to allow people to play what they want in Halo. As soon as you start forcing me to play SWAT, I mean, that's the most anti-Halo mode there is.
Hey, it's fun though. It's fun though. It's still fun.
Still goes against everything Halo.
It's not even. So you're gonna force me to get 5 back smacks.
Right,
I mean,
come back.
But anyways, yeah. So the thing is, you got to step back and think about what is really the differentiator about this IP, and figure out how you can do something that you can build around that. Some sort of live service, carrot on the stick element around that part of the game that nobody else can really replicate, right? Nobody else is. Call of Duty is not going to be able to come out with a Call of Duty builder that's probably going to compete with Forge anytime soon. So that's kind of where I would leave it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Pretty much a lot of what you guys said, in terms of, and it's the earlier conversation we had about trying to draw people in, when I was saying earlier about how they missed their opportunity in the first year, with a down year for, for Battlefield and Call of Duty and whatever. So if it requires, the weird thing is I used to see a lot of conversation about Battle Royale and how, Halo purists don't want a Battle Royale, and how, a lot of Halo purists are very protective over their nostalgia, for
me and Pat fight against them every day, man.
For what worked. for what used to work from before, it's like they don't want to evolve, and like you guys said, I think right now to get into look, man, we're past the point now of getting a complete or whatever it is, right? You like that's it. You're not gonna spend $60 on a case with a disc in it and get a full multiplayer suite in a game anymore, at least when it comes to Halo. Those days are done. So and I think a lot of this complete stuff or complete package or whatever people talk about is related to historically how Halo released, even with up to 5 at least. And I think now, since they're launching into a completely different landscape than how multiplayer used to be. You guys were talking about earlier about, with Halo and how popular Halo 2 was and Halo 3 was, in terms of multiplayer and whatever. Yeah, but the landscape's changed. I mean, it has, man. Think about Tiger Woods, for instance. Tiger Woods used to freaking dominate golf. He took some time off. He came back and the field caught up to him. Now some of them are even better than him. I mean, so I think that's a reality a lot of people are going to have to face. Us, because we are familiar with the franchise and because we love it and we love the feel for it. Obviously, yeah, we're always going to come back to it. But they can't only depend on people like us, like Abe was saying. They have to branch out and they have to figure out how to draw people in. And that's what they screwed up with this launch.
Yeah.
That's what they screwed up, and that's what they need to do. So if it requires Battle Royale to bring in people, to get them to try it out, to leave Fortnite, to leave Apex or other Battle Royales, to leave Warzone. Warzone 2 is coming out, guys. And that's going to be free to play. I mean, so
we got a squad right here for that, by the way.
Dude, yeah, man. Oh yeah. So I mean, I don't think it's going to ever hit the highs that it hit from before. That's why I was mentioning like those days are, the field caught up. And I think a lot of people need to accept that. But if they can get it to a respectable level where it still maintains its dignity, the dignity of Halo, right? Like, I mean, I think it should be maintained in this space. Yes. Right. Like, I mean, if you're bringing something into this live service space against the big boys, you should figure out ways to maintain its dignity. And whether that is with bringing people in or trying to figure out to bring people in, getting rid of the shitty progression system, like you guys are talking about playing these other modes or whatever, or getting 25 kills and only getting 50 points or whatever it is, that needs to go. You need to figure out carrot on a stick, like we said in the beginning. So I think, we'll see what happens. And if we're sitting here talking in front of a camera and we're mentioning this stuff, there's no way all these smart people that got together to build this game don't know this either.
Oh, of course.
Right? Like I'm sure they've had these conversations hundreds of times. Yeah. So we'll see what happens, man. All these modes and whatever it is, like, yeah, it's cool, for people who want to play different things, but it's not going to have a lasting effect. I've never heard anyone say like, man, I want to play Oddball. I really want to play Oddball. I mean,
I don't mind it. But...
I mean, we don't mind it, but
it's not drawing players.
Let me ask you, in ranked, you know how sweaty ranked gets and whatever. You know how pissed off we get sometimes when people don't play the objective, right? Do you like Oddball in ranked, or would you just prefer honestly, or would you just prefer it to be Slayer? Or capture the flag.
I prefer objective games than ranked.
I prefer a mix. Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking to
No.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, man. No, go ahead, please.
I was just gonna say I like a mix. If there was 2 ranked playlists, one was a Team Arena, which was Slayer and objective, and one was only Slayer, I would never play Slayer unless somebody else wanted to.
It gets boring after a while.
I like to flip between them. I think objective takes more skill.
It does.
If I'm solo queuing, Slayer, but that's why there should be more playlists.
Yes.
For ranked. You should have that option,
Yep.
Sure.
So I'm just going to real quickly sum up what Mo said, and that is you can solve all the issues if we just get rid of sprint. I think that's what you said, right?
That's what I got from that too.
I'm going to bring it right back.
That's it. It'd be right at number 1 again.
People in their sprint, man. They're never going to let it go.
Eric, go ahead, man, and then I'll say this final thing after you.
Okay. So in terms of how I think Halo Infinite will get back on track. I think everything that they showed in their presentation was spot on. I think that they showed that they are very in tune with what the community is looking for and what the game needs. And I think that they're on track to deliver that. Obviously, things can happen, but if they deliver on the stuff that they talked about, I think Halo is going to be in good shape. Going forward, I will say, though, that in the short term, one big favor that they could do themselves is to have like hire a person or two people or like a small group of people to have their job be to go through community Forge creations, curate them, create beta playlists where you can go into Forge maps that have been curated by a small group of QA people, like just light testing with a warning saying like you might fall through the floor. Like, but again, that will
have fun.
be funny. That will be stuff that
Yeah.
gets shared in the community, and you'll know that that stuff could happen because it's going to be a beta playlist, and that will get people to see what Forge can be. Because like 1% of Halo players are going to create in Forge, and 99% of players are going to play in Forge. So being able to get those creations out there while we wait for the custom games browser, I think that's really important, and I think that that could be something that's relatively easy to do in the short term.
Agreed.
In terms of if I think Halo could ever be number one again, no, it never will. The fact of the matter is people come in and play Halo and they get owned, and they don't like to get owned, and they want to play a game where they could see someone first and get a kill, or they like
Point and
different
shoot, man.
different
Point and
things can
shoot.
happen, and they might not win, they might not go positive, but they're going to get kills and they're not going to get completely dominated. Halo has a higher skill cap. It's same thing with Apex. Apex will never be the number one BR, even though it's the best BR of all time, because it has a high skill gap. If you go into Apex, you're going to get owned. If you don't know what you're doing and you haven't played much, you're going to get completely destroyed. If you go into Fortnite, you're going to play against bots without even knowing it, and you're going to feel like you're doing well, and going to post your triple kill on Twitter, even though you just killed 3 bots who can't even damage you without knowing it. And people want that
you
because
calling someone else specifically right now, or
no.
okay.
But like that's the thing, and I don't want to disrespect those players, because there's people that play those games at extremely high levels and are just insane, and I'm not trying to say that I'm like elite or anything because I choose to play Halo and Apex. I get my butt kicked in Halo and Apex, but I've just grown with that style of gameplay, and that's what I like. And there is a lot of people that like that style of gameplay, so there will always be an audience. It's not going to be number one, but it could easily be like number 3 or 2 or 4 or something like that. And we live in an era where if it's a 7 or 10, it sucks. If it's an 8 or 9 or 10, then it's good. Same thing goes with video games. If it's the number 1, number 2 most played game, then it's great. If it's a 3 or 4, trash. But that's not the case. There's millions of people that will play Halo. I think where Halo can grow and be attract a more broader audience is actually on the single player side of things. I think that Halo Infinite's campaign is really awesome and people would like it. And like Pat said, the universe is basically Star Wars. It can go in any way, and you can deliver amazing experiences. Like if there was like a game where you play as like a Ghost of Tsushima style game where you play as an elite going through like a takeover from the Prophets and the Brutes, trying to escape that and get your people out. That would be awesome. If like Quantic Dream made a game where you play as an insurrectionist who's trying to sneak into like an ONI facility to get secret documents, like that would be awesome. Because the lore is awesome and there's so much universe there to explore. And those are the types of games that could get recognized. They could get nominations for Game of the Year awards. They can get shown off at E3. They can get people to play that aren't necessarily going to enjoy going into like Team Arena and getting spanked and then getting mad and uninstalling. A lot of the people that I know that tried Halo and liked the campaign bounced out of the multiplayer super quick because they don't want to. A lot of times people just go to work, they come home, they get dinner ready for their kids, they spend all their day doing stuff they don't want to do, and then they have an hour to play a game. And they don't want to spend that hour getting completely spanked by people who've been playing that game all day. And they want to go into something like Call of Duty where, even like I said, they might not win, but they're going to get a couple kills. They're going to get a kill streak here or there. They're going to be able to drop an airstrike. It's going to be fun, and it's not going to be too bad. And that's what they want. And that's why Call of Duty is so successful. When you guys, this is, I guess, like anecdotal, but you guys might have similar experiences. When Halo 3 came out, there was no Call of Duty. I was in high school at the time. Everybody in my high school, all my friends, we all played Halo. There was people that were really good because they played a lot of Halo before, and there's people that were really bad and they got completely dominated. As soon as Call of Duty came out, all the people that sucked went and played Call of Duty, and they had more fun there because it's more fun to not get spanked all the time.
The point I was just making earlier.
Exactly.
Eric, they took over.
Can I say one more thing, because I got to correct Mo when we come back to our show again in a year.
Correct me.
By the way, I love your idea about other games, Eric. I think that's critical, Pat. I think many of us have said this. Give us a horror flood game, something that's dark, that has the flood. I mean, to your guys' point, there's endless possibilities with
Yeah.
Halo.
Yeah.
And that leads into, so A, feel free to add, but this is the broader conversation I want to add is
Okay.
completely agree that Halo has infinite possibilities, pun aside, and that there's so much more they could do with the franchise, not just with Infinite itself, but with all these other ideas, right? And the one thing, and I said this on Defining Duke too, is that I can't understand a company like Microsoft, who obviously owns Xbox. We know this. They just spent $70 billion on Activision Blizzard. They spent $7 billion on Bethesda. 343 at its core, without contractors, without assistants, without all this other stuff, they're about a 750 person studio, right? 800 person studio. That includes everyone, right? So that's books, that's transmedia, everything we've talked about, figures and merchandise and all this, right? Which leads your core development team to a big AAA studio, yes, right? But think of what we're talking about with scope and all these different games that could be made and how big this IP is and how much it's worth. It's worth billions of dollars. And they have a TV series and they have toys and everything I just said. Why does Microsoft not have 343 as this fundamental pillar among Xbox studios? That's a 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 person studio making these games. Call of Duty, literally, if you look through the Activision Blizzard acquisition papers and go through all these studios, the 8 studios that Activision has, 8 studios make Call of Duty. That's it. That's all they make. It's thousands and thousands, it's several thousand employees that make Call of Duty, period. If you want Halo is not going to be the flagship premier franchise again unless you really invest in it. And having a 700 or 800 person studio where you're bringing contractors in and out is not going to do that for you. It's just not. Halo Infinite can still be a great game, and it is a great game, and I think it'll continue to grow into being everything we said tonight. But if you want Microsoft to truly be, if you want Halo to truly be its flagship IP for all of Xbox Studios, which we all believe it should be, I know, you've got to invest more in it, period. I just don't see why that's not happening from my viewpoint. And that's easy to say as I sit here in a chair, not worrying about billions of dollars. But anyway, that was the point. Kind of tags onto your end, Eric, where it's like they could make all these other experiences, right? But I think we all want to see that. And I don't know. I have to hope that that's happening or in planning or something. But why has it taken so long?
Well, and you said Ains. I'm glad you said that. The more I kind of learned about the contract situation and how they're they're tight on resources now, I'm like, you're Halo. You just spent $80 billion on companies. How are you tight on resources? And this really does tie into the last question you asked. You'll never be one of the big boys if you don't start to treat it like one of the big boys again. If you're going to continue to only put and I know they're not, when you've invested, you got hundreds of people, they invest a lot of money in this. It's not like they're dipping their toes.
Yeah, it's not a double A studio, but
it's not a double A studio. But from a triple A standpoint, from a triple A live service game, in a way, it does feel like they're not all in. When you look at the resources that Epic or the Activision put in there, and I don't think you'll ever be able to, you have to have faith that that's going to pay off, I guess, and maybe they don't. But you would think though, Microsoft with this Game Pass, with this expanding on all these other devices, Halo is the thing that still has that Star Wars potential. And Mr. Positive there mentioned all those opportunities. I'll go back to what I wanted to challenge Mo on. It's not really challenging Mo on. I want to just kind of bring this thing up because to think about something to pay attention to, and it goes right back to the Roblox thing. Roblox is not a specific game. It's basically like a playground, right? Like these kids, they go there, they go into this virtual world, and there's all these different types of things, creative things that people do. No one sort of mode or game type or anything like that really carries that particular platform, right? And it goes to what I was saying earlier. I do think that all these things together become more than a sum of the parts. And Microsoft does have the ability to turn this into something they got to, they just got to take some of those risks and be innovative again, create that virtual playground. You could probably do that with a Forge beyond just some of the single player stuff. So something that I want to, keep an eye on, because they did seem, when Stain did mention Forge, it did seem like they were very excited about it. It does seem like they are, putting some eggs in that basket. I want them to look at some of these things and say, like, I don't think they should be chasing Fortnite. I think they should be really looking at how do we become the adult version of, almost this whole metaverse thing we talk about, right? How to become the adult version of that, right? For something that's not, not janky, broken graphics for kids, but become the, take that concept into the Halo world. Halo is an IP that could do that probably better than any other IP at this time. So.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up, Pat. Sorry, we're talking in private chat because we were talking about Apex Legends, and they've accomplished a lot. Respawn's a fantastic dev. I don't think anyone's taken that away from them, right? And leadership, but the scope's very different, guys. I was joking the other day, and I sent this in DMs to some people that, I pulled up a Polygon article from 2019 where they were literally criticizing Apex for not having content and losing players. You know what I mean? It's like, again, this is the live service struggle that you face, and Apex has found and they've been hugely successful at it. But they found a great way to keep people engaged and kind of built that back up over time. And I think from what I saw, they're at the highest player count now than they have been, right, since they launched, which is awesome. So the game's in a great place. So I'm not taking anything away from that. But again, you think of Halo, right? You have to deliver this amazing campaign, open world campaign. They built an engine. They've got multiplayer suite. They're talking about BR. They've got a Forge, which is the game development tool. They've got books and comics and media and television series. The scope of Halo as an IP is unbelievable. There's very few IPs like it in gaming, if any.
That's why I made the point about Star Wars, though, too. Star Wars is a huge scope of and
think of all the resources Disney has invested into Star Wars, right? Look at what they've done with it. I think all of us can agree. I think, I don't want to speak for you, but all of us can agree. It's like we cherish Halo. There's endless possibilities. For God's sakes, invest more in it. It's not 2010. You can't just have a single several hundred person AAA studio developing the scope of what this game is today. It's just
it's not the way development works nowadays. Yeah.
No.
Agree.
In fact, one of the guys who works on Apex, who follows me, he's a dev. Like I said, I think he's Respawn. Yeah. He was talking about he said, think of Halo Infinite. He goes, take everything else out of the equation. Everything else from Halo 3 to Infinite. He goes, Halo Infinite was built for the 360 on an existing engine. Halo Infinite was built on a new engine for 3 platforms. Xbox, and variations of platforms as well, right? He goes, the scope of that alone by itself is astronomical. People just don't understand what that means. The last thing I'll say, because I know we're going to close out here, is the last interesting thing I find is I know we all hear it, is that Halo player count's not very high. We see the Steam numbers, etc. The one thing I do find interesting, though, is I look at the Xbox Live charts like every week. I'm just a weird geek like that, right? Halo has not dropped out of the top 20 at any time that I've seen in the past few months, right? Of Xbox Live most played games. And the interesting thing is I looked just last night before this conversation. It's number 16 right now, by the way. 14 of the 15 games in front of it, right, are cross-play games on every platform. Meaning third party on all platforms, PC, PlayStation. Right. Some are on Switch as well, and Xbox. So your Fortnite, your Apex, Rainbow Six Siege, Minecraft, Roblox, the GTA Online, those games. Those are the only games in front of Halo. The only other game, I said 14 and 15, is Forza Horizon 5. And as we know, it's not only Xbox, but it had a big expansion recently too, in Hot Wheels. So I just find it interesting that, I know we hear a lot of the time, Halo's dead or Infinite's dead. It's got no players. I don't think that's true. I think there's more people playing this game than you realize. Just because the Steam number shows one thing, this game is ahead of some very big games on Xbox Live still every day and every week, which shows that there's plenty of people playing it. And it's even seen an increase with the Yappening, as we know, which is a single playlist. It's not even anything crazy, right? So I think, but I think my point in all that is, one, the whole dead conversation is silly to begin with. But two, I think those players, do come back as these events comes, the content comes, these things roll out. I don't think it's going to have as hard of a time as some people think bringing players back.
Right.
And the Steam numbers themselves are kind of a joke to use as a measuring stick, because not only they don't even count all the players on PC, let alone all the players playing Halo. There's a lot of people that use the Windows Store and the Xbox Game Pass app to play those games. That's how I personally played it on PC. And the thing that is like PC gaming, in my
that's
experience,
kind of my point about Xbox Live, because those numbers go into Live, which is a better indicator of how successful the game is. Yeah.
But there isn't a lot of games on PC that will maintain audiences. There's games that come out and they have these huge spikes, and then everybody goes back to the same things: the Counter-Strikes, the Leagues, the Dotas, the Blizzard games. New World came out and broke records, and so did Lost Ark, and like now everybody's playing Counter-Strike again. League of Legends again.
So did Hyperscape. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, that game was really pretty. That's cool colors.
That's a
Halo's not dead, but there is a population problem. I still think there's a problem. I'm not going to deny that fact. Even if you guys say don't look at Steam, well, if you look at Steam when the game launched and look at the steady decline, is something significant in itself. But it's greatly over exaggerated that the game is dead. Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, certainly not saying it's blowing blowing the doors off right now. That's not what I meant.
It should be higher. As Microsoft's, as Halo, it should be higher in my opinion.
Agree.
It could be higher one day, so we'll see.
The drop off too. A lot of players on PC, like this type of shooter, a lot of the drop off is accounted by people playing the campaign, finishing it, and not playing anymore too, right?
Yeah.
Because like, not to lump people into categories or anything, but PC shooters, like people that play shooters on PC, they tend to gravitate towards more like flick style shooters like Counter-Strike and stuff like that. Or Valorant is a huge one, but stuff like Halo hasn't never really been that popular on PC. Halo 2 was on PC and it didn't really do that well either. Same with CE, stuff like that. So even stuff like Gears of War doesn't do very well on PC. So I think a lot of those people that dropped off on Steam specifically likely bought the game on Steam and like beat the campaign and moved on. Definitely could be more players. I don't think Halo should be 16th on Xbox Live. I don't think it should leave the top 10. I don't think Microsoft thinks it should either. But I guess I'm just in the middle. I don't think that there's like this drastic panic, but I definitely think there's room for improvement as well.
Of course. Yeah, I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. And I'm in the camp that I think Fortnite should be taken out because it's going to be number one apparently till the end of time. So like it shouldn't even be on the list anymore. It should be everything and then Fortnite.
Just got all those bots playing, right?
Anyway, guys, great conversation as always. I think we covered a lot of points there in this conversation. I hope everyone listening kind of enjoyed that and enjoyed some perspective. Hopefully we find some people who like us, adore Halo, grew up with this, spend endless hours. Everything from someone like Pat who creates content constantly and streams Halo to we all do that. We talk about it all the time. It's endless, right? How much our adoration is for Halo, and we want to see it succeed, be in the best place it can. And I don't know, we'll revisit this conversation. How about we come back and do an end of the year one after Forge and campaign co-op and winter updates out, and we can tackle the career progression beta at that point. Maybe we do a holiday show where we touch base for the new year and see what happens.
Sounds pretty good.
All right, boys. Let me go ahead and give your spiel, your closing comments, where people can find you as always, and we'll go the same orders. Pat, go for it, man.
All right. Thank you guys once again for the discussion. I could talk Halo all day, so I appreciate being invited on anytime you guys want to talk Halo. You can find me at the Patman Gaming for everything. So TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all your social medias, and on YouTube. The Patman Gaming. Thank you again.
Please check his YouTube channel out in particular. He does cover all things Halo, including Master Chief Collection as well. He does very good updates on kind of summaries of the content updates and features and things. So, great work over there, brother. Abe, the host of You Had Me at Halo and Xbox Era. Let's go.
Yeah. You can never... you probably got a good taste that our podcast usually can run a little long sometimes. So yeah, if anybody wants to get to look me up, we do have a Halo podcast that runs approximately bi-weekly, depending on sometimes it's spaced out a little bit more depending on content. Generally on Thursday. And
right now it's every 4 months apparently.
Yeah, you know what? Somehow, I don't think we've gone more than 3 weeks. We started the show. We started this before. God, it's before the game launched, like a half year before the game launched, and yeah, we always find something to talk about, or maybe it's just me. I just talk too much, but I will always find something to talk about when it comes to Halo. So look me up there. In our next show, we will be having John come in and talk about the Forge
Sweet.
map that he had demoed in the first showcase. So
Nice.
Sweet, man.
Very nice. Cool.
You guys went and switched on me, so now I'm going to Eric before Mo.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Eric. I go by Game Positive on the internet. You can find me on Twitter at GamePositiveYT. I also write for Season Gaming somehow. Ains lets me do that. I have a really awesome
Not
review.
for long.
Yeah. Well, then you better act fast and head over to seasongaming.com and check out my review for Inscription. It's one of the best games of the year. If Elden Ring didn't come out this year, it would be my game of the year at this point in time. And it's going under the radar and it's criminally underrated. So please check that review out. I also
Until
post,
November 9th.
Oh yeah. God of War. I also think God of War 2018 is the best single player game of all time.
Stop it.
Also,
Stop it.
I do post video versions of some of the content I make, as well as my podcast on my YouTube channel, which is /GamePositiveYT. And you can find my podcast on all podcast platforms. Just search Game Positive. It's probably there somewhere.
It's probably there somewhere. Thanks, Eric. Mo.
You will find me on Twitter at Dr._Mo. I am a real physician. I am not a Twitter physician. I do not talk medicine, though. I just keep it strictly video games and entertainment and pissing off people here and there, you know. But yeah, you'll just find me there daily.
Right. Currently working on Tears of the Kingdom for Steam Deck, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm. Oh yeah.
Number one Nintendo pirate.
Hit me up if you
Worldwide.
want any tips on emulation for the Steam Deck. I know how to piss off Nintendo Switch fans really good. So
As you own more games for the Switch than they ever will, probably.
that's crazy.
Anyway.
It's funny.
By the way, I forgot to shout out. You know where to find me. I'm not going to give my spiel. But Mo and I, along with 2 others from the community, will be at the Halo World Championship in Seattle next month in October. So looking forward to meeting more people, including Xbox. I know we've had the pleasure of having some Xbox employees and 343 employees listen to our shows in the past. So if you're going to be there, would love to catch up with you. I caught up with a few in the Kansas City major where I am. Unishek and Sketch were there, and James Shields and a bunch of others. So
Nice.
it's always nice catching up with you guys. So please search us out. I'll be looking for you, and hopefully we can share a drink. But yeah, that's it. Thank you all for tuning into Season Gaming and listening to our Halo chatter. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Feel free to yell at us. I get that anyway, so that's fine. And we'll be back in the holiday season for a follow-up to this, and we'll see how 343 is doing in about, 4.5 months' time. So look for that. Yeah, man.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you as always. Have a good night, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.